right. Hello, everybody. We're back.
On an off night.
Yeah,
This is
we're
for
off
the
night. We're trying to fit one
secret
in.
insiders. Yeah. This is the secret insiders club. You
I
made
got
it.
I got a message from Marielle. She's like, "Is it tonight or is it like yesterday? I thought it was
Oh,
tonight, and now it's different." I said, "I'm sorry," but
yeah.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
hopefully people can make it because we've got a doozy tonight.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting.
We've got a Saint Oran, and I was just telling Jeremy that that was one of the first saints that I came across.
Hmm.
And I remember thinking, how come nobody knows about this man?
Hmm. Yeah.
So I'm really excited we're doing this. Actually, I'm excited to hear more. Yeah. So since you were gone for 2 weeks, and I was gone for 2 weeks,
Yeah.
how were your 2 weeks off?
It was well, the analogy I've been using for Great Lent this year is that it feels like, I lost my window. Sorry. There it is. Okay. So this year it feels like being a burn patient, like in a burn ward,
Oh,
where like my whole body's covered with burns, and I know I'm healing. I'm in a hospital, but every day they have to come in and change the bandages.
yeah,
And so the bandages have started to grow in
yeah,
to and the nurses are removing the bandages, and you're like, oh. And then you feel very raw, where even just the air hurts.
wow,
But you're in a hospital and you're being healed, right? So
yeah,
it's like, for me, it feels very much like that. It feels very
oh,
much a lot of things are being healed, but I feel very uh raw. Let's put it that way.
yeah.
So it's good. I'm very grateful. Right? It's been very good.
Well, I'm not approaching Lent in the same way you are. Can't really fast. I mean, I'm on a fast. I'm on
Yeah.
a strict fast for probably the rest of my life,
Yeah.
um, and I'm not attending any services, um, but I'm there's a lot of healing happening now that you mention it. There's a lot of
Mm.
healing happening at the moment. It's just in the air, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I see it even in my extended family. I'm seeing reconciliation conversations happening,
Yeah,
and people coming back together after many years of division or bitterness. There's a lot of that's happening, in my immediate family, and then also in my extended family, and it's very beautiful. It's very good.
well, seasonally we're coming out of the darkness into the light,
Yes, amen.
where there's lots of new life. Donnie's asking, when does Lent end? Yes, there is an official start and end time.
Yeah, so Friday is the official end of Great Lent. You would say it would end at sunset on Friday, and then Friday evening we're heading into Lazarus Saturday. Lazarus Saturday is celebrating the rise of Lazarus as a foreshadowing of what was to come. And we're having a big baptism on this Saturday as well. We have so many people that they're splitting the baptism across Lazarus Saturday and Holy Saturday.
Oh, wow, cool.
So yeah, we have about 25 people that are going to be baptized this weekend, and 25 people will be baptized next weekend into our parish.
That's amazing.
And that's not even half of our catechumens. But anyway, it's crazy. You should see when they call the catechumens for Divine Liturgy. It's like half the parish walks to the front. We're all like looking around like, what? It's wild. I can't believe it. But anyway, that's a distraction. Sorry. So Friday is the end of Great Lent. Saturday is is Lazarus Saturday. Sunday is Palm Sunday, where we celebrate the entry of the Lord into Jerusalem. And then Sunday night is the official beginning of Holy Week, and it's called the bridegroom services are that night. And then there's services basically every day next week, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday is like pretty much all day, every day services. So, one
next week.
Yep, next week is Holy Week.
Wow.
So,
Cool.
yeah.
I still haven't gotten a whole weekend, like a Holy Week. I haven't been able to do that yet. That's gonna be I'm gonna have to pilgrimage for it.
Yeah.
And so
yeah, I actually took the week off this year for the first time, and
good.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, you can totally get immersed.
Yeah. It's going to be really nice.
Yeah.
So
nice.
Yeah, looking for. I need it. So.
Well, don't feast too much, right?
Oh yeah, no, that's So on Pascha is when the fast ends, right? So, and we have a big barbecue that day. Our parish has a big barbecue on Sunday, the 20th. So, yeah, that'll be really fun. Looking forward to that too. So, but yeah, the fast has been challenging this year too, but of course it is. It's supposed to be.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be hard, right?
I don't think a fast is ever not challenging.
Yeah. So.
All
yes,
right.
exactly
Well,
right.
do we want to dig into St. Oran? It looks like we've got the people here.
Yeah, we've got people. I'm grateful you're here. Thanks for joining us. I made a joke at the beginning that this is the secret inner circle of Lives of the Saints. You made it, and so we're glad you're here. The schedule's been a little off this last couple of weeks, and then we were supposed to do it yesterday, and I got called away at the last minute. I had to go down to meet with my priest. So, and then next week I'll have to look at my schedule. I'm not sure. I think I have a service on Tuesday night. Like, I think there's a service every night next week. So I don't know if I'll be available.
Yeah.
But we can do it right after Holy Week.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll skip Holy Week then.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's all good.
Yeah, I specifically took it off so that I could be I want to go to every service.
And there are a few people here probably that will be busy too that week.
Yeah. So, okay, tonight is St. Oran, and let's. I would like to pray if that's okay.
Oh yes, please.
Okay. Let me pull that up. Oh, there it is. Illumine our hearts, O Master, who lovest mankind with the pure light of thy divine knowledge. Open the eyes of our mind to the understanding of thy gospel teachings, and plant also in us the fear of thy blessed commandments, that trampling down all carnal desires, we may enter upon a spiritual manner of living, both thinking and doing such things as are well-pleasing unto thee. For thou art the illumination of our souls and bodies, O Christ our God, and unto thee we ascribe glory, together with thy Father, who is from everlasting, and then all holy, good, and life-giving Spirit, now and ever, and unto the ages of ages. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Let me share my screen. Every time we do this, I have to remember. It's like we're starting all over. I have to remember what I'm doing. Like, how does this work again? What am I doing? This one. Okay. Let me close that. Does that? That. Okay. So the first one I want to share, and this is probably the shortest one. This is from an old. Can you see it? Yeah, you can.
That's okay. Good. Yeah.
So this is from an old collection of the lives of the saints that I found that were written in about the 1500s, 1400s. I think 1500s. It was collected in England, and there's some gems in the lives of the saints in that book. It's really great. Mm-hmm. And so Saint Oran is not well known. There's my priest only vaguely recalled his story and didn't, I had to, as I was telling it to him, he was like, oh yeah, I've heard that. But so this is one version of the story that I want to share. I have 3 versions of his life, and they kind of go into layers of detail. So each one has a little more detail.
Okay, hang on a second.
Okay.
Ron, the saint is Saint Oran.
Saint
And
Oran. There's 3 different spellings for his name. So he is Saint Oran, Saint Odrin, or Saint Odrin with an H, Odh. So this is that's another thing that makes him a little hard to track down and find. And there's another saint with the same name who lived around the same time, so that's also tricky. But this one is Saint Oran of his add-on of his name is Saint Oran of Iona. That's his designation. So this is Saint Oran. Oran, abbot of Iona and Trifarnham on Meath, was son of Niall of the race of Conal Golbin. He is called in the Philir of Engus Odrin the abbot, noble swimming. In O'Donnell's Life of St. Columba is the striking story of his death. On arriving at Iona, Columba said that there were a group of monks who were traveling and they were looking for a place to start a monastery. And St. Columba was leading them. On arriving in St. Iona, Columba said that whoever willed to die first should not only go more quietly to Christ, but should confirm and ratify the right of the community to the island by taking bodily possession of it. Odrin, wearied of the miseries of the present world, consented, whereupon St. Columba not only assured him of eternal felicity, but said that none should pray at his own sepulchre and receive his petition till he had first asked the intercession of Odrin at his tomb. There is a strange legend in the island that as he lay in his grave before inhumation, he denied the future state, meaning he said there is no heaven and there is no hell, and was immediately covered up by the indignant abbot. And we'll see more of this in a couple of other versions. Oronsay takes its name from him. He is also remembered at Kiloran in Colonsay. And I also wanted to share the reason that we're talking about this saint is that we had Maria asked us about this saint, and she wanted us to cover this life, and she sounded a little scandalized.
Mariel, right?
Oh yeah,
Mariel.
Yeah, Maria. So,
well, it is
it is. Yeah, this is a challenging thing. This is a difficult thing to talk about. And the other thing I want to make clear is that I am going to share the connections that came to mind for me as I was reading the story of Saint Oran, and as I've been pondering it and praying about it this week. The things that we're going to talk about tonight or that we're going to share are just connections that came up for me. I'm not saying that they're an orthodox, that any priest would endorse what I have to say. And if I make any mistakes, they're mine, not from orthodoxy. So, but I am going to share some other ancillary material that I think will bring to light more of what might be going on here. Okay, that said, let's stop that one and let me share a different one. That one's last, I think. Hold on.
Columba. I don't think Columba levitated. I don't think he's
not that I know of.
I mean, he could have.
Yeah,
but I don't think that's written about him. One of the things that Peter Brown said about the Celtic saints that was really interesting was that a lot of the monks in the UK or United Kingdom or British Isles or whatever that was called at the time were ex-warriors. And one of the ways that you could get out of fighting, and this wasn't a coward's path, this was mostly a path for men who had just had enough. They were traumatized. They weren't warriors per se. They had no desire to kill anything. And that actually comes up in St. Columba's story. I remember where they were going to butcher a cow and he prayed that the knife that they were going to use on the cow wouldn't work. on any animal, and it never did, apparently, according to the story. And so, but there was a provision for monks that they didn't have to fight. And so many of the men became monks, not to hide, but because because taking on that vocation was just as hard as being a warrior, right?
Yeah.
So, these were men who had thought it through and decided that's what they were done with killing. Yeah, conscientious objectors, so to speak.
Yeah.
But when you have a lord or a warlord looking after where you live, if he tells you to get up and fight, you fight. Otherwise, you're a dead man, right? So there was. I think that's an interesting thing to think about because, there was.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah,
we don't know the backstory to a lot of the saints and why they ended up where they are or where they were.
Yeah, and I believe Columba was known as one of those for sure warriors that became a monk. But yeah, okay.
Okay, so this is the next version of his life that I found. Built on Bones, the story of Saint Oran. Excuse me. Could the history of Iona include human sacrifice to explore the dark myth of Saint Oran? Well, so this one is definitely not really hagiography. But it has some details in here that I think are useful. Are you in the mood for a spine-tingling tale on one of the most holy sites of England? Beware as you read on. The story of Saint Oran might change your opinion of Iona forever. The tranquil Isle of Iona is well known for the monastery, which was founded there by Saint Columba in 563. Over the centuries, this tiny island beside Mull became an internationally renowned center of spirituality, learning, and art, and has been a vibrant center of Christian worship ever since. But did you know that there's a brutal legend associated with the dawn of this community? Indeed, it would not seem to be out of place in a story by Edgar Allan Poe. This is a little bombastic. But
yeah, okay. A little hyperbolic there.
Yeah. New beginnings. Let's travel back to the time of May 563. It should be AD 563. St. Columba has just arrived on Iona with 12 companions. It is said that the 13 men had traveled from Ireland after a disagreement with another saint, Saint Finan. It seems that St. Columba and Finan quarreled about a copied manuscript. The dispute escalated and led to a fierce battle with loss of life. Among the 13 men who left Ireland with St. Columba was St. Oran. He was a very influential figure in County Tipperary, where he founded a church in AD 520. He is variously known as St. Oran or St. Odrin, which causes a bit of confusion, and we've used St. Oran for the rest of this blog. Over time, the folklore around the founding of the religious community on Iona has grown and developed, with new generations adding to the story. Today, one popular version of the story tells how the missionaries on Iona were working to build the first chapel on the island. Each day, the builders would make good progress, but by the next morning, they were dismayed to discover that the building was in ruins. After some time, St. Columba received a divine intimation that one of the monks must be buried alive in the foundations of the chapel in order to secure the building. In 1900, Scottish writer William Sharp, under the pseudonym Fiona MacLeod, explained that in the earliest known telling of the tale, Columba said to his people, "It is well for us that our roots should go underground here." And he said to them, "It is permitted to you that some one of you go under the earth of this island to consecrate it." Odrin rose up readily, and thus he said, "If thou wouldst accept me," he said, "I am ready for that." And Odrin then went to heaven. The act of sacrificing a life to secure foundations is an ancient tradition. Indeed, it's one that can be found in the Old Testament. In Ahab's time, Heel of Bethel rebuilt Jericho. He laid its foundations at the cost of his firstborn son, Abiram, and he set up its gates at the cost of his youngest son, Segub, in accordance with the word of the Lord spoken by Joshua, son of Nun. In this Old Testament example, it is an literal entombment. It refers to an earlier curse. Joshua laid an oath on them at that time, saying, "Cursed before the Lord be the man who rises up and rebuilds the city Jericho. At the cost of his firstborn shall he lay its foundation, and at the cost of his youngest son shall he set up its gates." Although he knew of the curse, Heel defied God and rebuilt Jericho, an example of a father knowingly sacrificing the lives of his sons to raise a city. Returning to the scene, if burying one of your friends alive under a building wasn't quite traumatic enough, the legend goes on to reveal that 3 days after Oran was entombed alive, Columba returned to the site. William Sharp writes, Colum opened the grave to look once more on the face of the dead brother, when to the amazed fear of the monks and the bitter anger of the abbot himself, Oran opened his eyes and exclaimed, "There is no such great wonder in death, nor is hell what it has been described." At this heresy, Columba cried some stuff in Gaelic. Earth on Oran's eyes, let he further blab. Lest he further blab. Yes, thank you. Poor Oran, who had presumably now lost his faith and belief that his sacrifice would achieve what was intended, was hastily reburied with clods of earth silencing him forever. What do we know about the truth of this tale? Well, we're not going to go into that, into his speculations. So this is the oldest chapel that's still on Oran, but this was built 600 years afterward. And then there's some other older ruins as well. The St. Oran's Chapel that stands on Iona now dates from about the third quarter of the 12th century. It could well have been built on top of a site that was a little older. However, we have no evidence for a building on that site as old as the 6th century, although it should be noted that we do have evidence of a wooden hut dating back 1,500 years on Iona. So that's another version with lots of modern scandal mixed in with it. Like feeling scandalized, I should say. And let me share the third one.
Oh, God.
There we go. Human sacrifice is on a spectrum. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I'm glad you guys are also feeling scandalized. This is good. I mean, it's not, but I don't mean to be flip. I've been wrestling with it all week. So I just pray that I can have, I pray that the Lord will guard my thoughts and my mouth as I speak.
I just have to say, before you go any further, the story
Sure.
I heard.
The story you heard was full of coughing, apparently.
The story I heard from Peter Brown, who is a historian, was a little bit nuanced, a little different than that last one you read. So, but I'm just going to listen through what else you have to share here.
Yeah, this is the last version of his life that I have to share, and then I have some other stuff to go with it. But let me share this first. On the feast day of Saint Oran of Iona, and that is, by the way, he is celebrated. He's commemorated on October 27th. I would have liked to write one more post about Saint Brendan's Isle, mostly to show you the ruins of the 6th century church and monastery, which we shall visit during our pilgrimages next year. Since today we celebrate Saint Oran, I'll postpone that for a while so we may focus on this little known but wonderful saint and the amazing church on Iona dedicated to him. The two, the saint and his church, are perfect examples of humility and dedication to Christ. Saint Oran's life has always been in the shadow of Saint Columba, his much better known abbot. Similarly, Saint Oran's chapel is rarely given much thought. The abbey attracts everyone's attention while St. Oran stands by, almost invisible to most people. You no doubt know the story of St. Columba's arrival to Iona in 563. For a long while, the saint and his companions tried in vain to build a church. For no reason, what they built one day would be reduced to ruins by the next morning. This happened several times until eventually St. Columba was told in a vision that the land required a human sacrifice for the building to stand up. This human sacrifice was St. Oran, who offered himself to be buried alive so that he may consecrate the land. This sacrifice had nothing to do with this world and the demonic gods of pre-Christian Iona. Instead, it had everything to do with St. Oran's monastic brothers and the heritage these first monks were called to leave to the world by establishing the monasteries in the Scottish Isles. St. Oran's sacrifice was not meant to please some pagan spirits, but to firmly imprint on his companions' hearts the otherworldliness of their faith. They needed to be free from the world outside and the world inside, to the most extreme extent, if their mission from God were to be successful. St. Oran's faith and the decisions he made based on his faith cannot be in any way reconciled with the values of this world. They betray a way of thinking in which this life and its fulfillment, whatever one may understand by that, are not its ultimate aims. St. Columba and the other monks needed to build their monastery on the foundation of St. Oran's faith as a sign over time that Christianity is not of this world, and neither is their monastery. St. Oran was the first Christian to be buried on Iona. His body was the first Christian body to enter this land. The first Christian church on that pagan isle was built over his grave. St. Oran's holy madness, his willing foolishness for Christ, his otherworldliness, these are the true foundations of the monastery. They are the true foundations of Christianity itself. So that one's a little short on details, but I think is good framing for his life.
Yeah. Yeah, so the story that Peter Brown told, and I heard it quite a long time ago, so I'll try to recall. I'll just tell what I can remember. Was like that the idea that every time they would build something, it would fall, next day they'd find it fallen over.
Yeah.
And some of the pagan people who were there said, "Oh, don't you have to bury someone under the building, otherwise it won't stand." And St. Columba said, "No, that we're not doing that." And so they kept trying.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kept falling over. And so St. Oran volunteered to be buried, but they didn't kill him. He was buried alive. So the pagan tradition would have been to kill the person and then bury them under it. But they didn't raise a hand to him. He voluntarily was buried alive.
Yeah. That's what I kind of gathered as well from another version I'm not sharing, where it was a small room, and he was gonna just pray until he was not around anymore.
Yeah, and I never heard anything about St. Columba getting angry with him because he said there was no heaven or hell.
Yeah, that was an old version of the story, but that is not the only version that included that story.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, and death is not what you think it is. So I don't know. Yeah, it's
But when you read that, I didn't really take it to be heresy per se.
I didn't either.
It was more like nothing is what we think it is, which
is,
like
you can't even imagine what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, of course, hell's not what you think it is.
Right. Yeah.
No matter what you think it is, it's either better or worse than what you think it is.
Right.
And heaven, for that matter.
So where my mind went with this, first of all, was Rome, right, with Remus and
Romulus. No.
Thank you. Remus and Romulus. Yeah, I just woke up. So so Remus and Romulus, right? So Romulus kills Remus and then builds, that was under the, Remus was innocent and he was killed by his brother, and he put his body under the main pillar in Rome, and then the whole city was built around it.
Well, I mean, isn't that the story of Cain and Abel, though, too? Because Cain is the builder of cities.
Yes.
Right. Correct. So that's the same theme, really.
Yes. There's an icon I want to share. because this will kind of open a really this leads into something else that I think is really interesting.
We're really in mythological territory here, folks.
Yeah, this is going to get it's going to get more confusing before it becomes less confusing. I think so. This is a good example. Let me share this. Open image in new tab here. Share this. 1 second. Here it comes. Okay. So this is an icon of the crucifixion, obviously. And there's a couple of interesting details. And Jonathan Pajot's talked about this. So you may already be familiar with this idea. But you see these, there's a skull and some bones below the cross, and Christ's blood is coming down onto those bones. And this is Adam. These are the relics of Adam, traditionally. And we have different sources. We have several sources for that idea. I mean, but this has been preserved in iconography. You see this in a lot of icons of the crucifixion, where you'll see at least a skull of Adam there. But I wanted to share one version of it that comes from the cave of the Book of Treasures. And so first, let's talk about what that is. Okay, no, you go ahead. You had a breath. I heard that.
Well, I didn't want to get ahead of you, so I just...
No, it's okay.
Well, there's also the tradition of having relics under the altar.
Every altar has at least the relics of at least one saint. Every Orthodox altar has the relics of at least one saint. That's correct. And it's the center. And there's also a cloth that is given, it's made by, or it's given by the bishop to a priest that says he's basically, that he's authorized to serve divine liturgy by the bishop. And in that cloth, which also goes on the altar, also has a relic in it. Okay. So it is this idea that that holiness radiates out, and that holiness also binds together, right? It's part of what's holding us together. But it's also what is going out into the world and healing it, right? That same holiness. And the saints are...
And that holiness is not just spiritual, but it's bodily. That's why the relics are so important.
Yes, because it's not just their spirit that has been redeemed, but their body has been redeemed as well. Their body has also been made holy, which is why we have relics that are, that have like strong myrrh smell. We have the incorrupt relics. There's many different kinds of relics where you see this holiness has not only affected the spirit of the person, but also their body. So because it is incarnational, right? So.
Right, and it's putting an accent on, a bodily resurrection, the importance of the human body. It's not a Gnostic gospel. The body is not the evil thing that you're trying to escape and all the rest of it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, the Christ, a lot of the early church fathers, when they're talking about the work that Christ did, really don't talk as much about the crucifixion or even the resurrection as they do the incarnation.
Right.
The incarnation was where Christ took on our nature completely so that he could heal it completely. And in healing by taking on a body and healing it, then that is what also prepares our bodies for the resurrection, right? And prepares humanity for the resurrection, so that we can be restored to our original nature. Anyway, so relics of Adam in a cave below Golgotha, below the cross on Golgotha. And the word Golgotha, as you know, also means skull. So I want to share so first let me talk a little bit about what the Book of the Cave of Treasures is. I just lost my spot, so we're going to have to find that again, but that's okay. So the present volume contains a complete translation of the Syriac text of the compendious history of the world from the creation to the crucifixion of our Lord, which is commonly known as the Cave of Treasures. In the Syriac title, the composition of the work is attributed to Ephraim Cyrus, or Ephraim the Syrian, who was born in Nisibis soon after AD 306 and died in 373. But it is now generally believed that the form in which we now have it is not older than the 7th century. Okay, so that's enough of that. I won't go too far down that rabbit hole. But anyway, it's a book that comes from Syria, and it's essentially, it's like a history of the world from the creation through the crucifixion. And it's a fascinating read. I can't recommend it highly enough. It's very fun. Let me stop sharing that and let me share. Let's see. I'm gonna have to move this and we'll share that. Okay, there we go. So now let me get to this part. Okay, so I think it's right here. One more. They were told, so Noah was told to go and get, so the relics of all the patriarchs up to the time of Noah were stored in a cave. And Noah was told to go there and retrieve Adam's relics and to bring them on the ark with him. I think it's back one more. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I didn't have this marked very well. So we're gonna. I don't want to go too far back. I'll just share that they did that. They went and got the relics and they brought them on the ark with them, and then so I'll start there where they land. And in the 601st year of the life of Noah, on the first day of the month of Nisan, April, the waters had dried up from the face of the earth. And in the second month, which is May, wherein Noah went into the ark on the 27th day, on the holy first day of the week, Sunday, their going forth took place. And he and his wife went forth, and his sons and their wives went with them. Now, when they went into the ark, they went in separate companies, Noah and his sons in one company, and his wife and with their wives with another company. And the men did not know the women until they went forth from the ark. And all the wild beasts and the cattle and all the feathered fowl and all the creeping things went forth from the ark on the first day of the week. And when they had gone forth, Noah began to work on the ground, and they built a city called the name thereof 8, after the name of the 8 souls who had gone forth from the ark. And Noah built an altar and offered up upon it an offering of beasts that were clean and feathered fowl. And God was appeased by the offering of Noah, and he established with him an everlasting covenant and swore an oath, saying, I will never again make a flood. He took away the arrow of wrath from the bow, which is in the clouds, and he stripped it from the string of anger and spread it out, unbent it in the clouds. For formerly, when the bow was bent in the firmament against that generation of the children of Cain, the murderer, they used to see the arrow of wrath placed in position on the string of anger. But after the flood, they did not see the arrow on the string. Let's see. I'm making sure I'm not too far back in the story. This is a note. Vineyard. Where is the part I'm thinking of? Okay, so Noah dies, and departure of Shem with the body of Adam. After the death of Noah, Shem did as his father had commanded him, and he went into the ark by night and brought out the body of Adam therefrom. And he sealed the ark with his father's seal, and no man perceived what he had done. And he called Ham and Japheth and said to them, My brethren, my father commanded me to go up and travel over the earth, even to the sea, the Mediterranean, and I am to see what the rivers are like, and then return unto you. And behold, my wife and the children of my house are with you. Let your eyes be upon them. And his brethren said unto him, Take with thee a company of men from the camp, for the land is a desert waste, and is shorn of inhabitants, and there are wild beasts therein. And Shem said unto them, The angel of the Lord shall go up with me, and he shall save me from every evil thing. And his brethren said unto them, Go in peace, and may the Lord God of our fathers be with thee. And Shem said to Malach, the brother of Salah, the son of Canaan and grandson of Aphaxad, the father of Melchizedek, and his mother, Give me Melchizedek, that he may go up with me and be a consolation for me on the road. And the father and mother said unto Shem, Take him and go in peace. And Shem gave commands unto his brethren and said unto them, My brethren, my father made me swear that neither I nor any of your descendants should go into the ark. And he sealed the ark with his seal and said unto them, Let no man go near it. And Shem took the body of Adam and Melchizedek. He took the body of Adam and Melchizedek and went forth by night from among his people. And behold, the angel of the Lord who was going before them appeared unto them. And their journey was very speedy, because the angel of the Lord strengthened them until they arrived at that place. And when they arrived at Golgotha, which is the center of the earth, the angel of the Lord showed Shem the place for the body of Adam. And when Shem had deposited the body of our father Adam upon that place, the four quarters of the earth separated themselves from each other, and the earth opened itself in the form of a cross, and Shem and Melchizedek deposited the body of Adam there. And as soon as they had laid it therein, the four quarters of the earth drew quickly together, and they enclosed the body of our father Adam, and the door of the created world was shut fast. And that place was called the skull, because the head of all the children of men was deposited there. And it was called Golgotha because it was round like the head, and Reciptha, a trodden down thing, because the head of the accursed serpent, that is to say Satan, was crushed there, and Gabbatha, because all the nations were to be gathered together to it. So Adam's relics were put into Golgotha, according to the Book of the Cave of Treasures and according to the iconography in Orthodoxy. And so we see the tie to the relics being put into the altar. So the Orthodox altars are a cube, and so they have four corners, and they symbolize the earth. And it is the offering that's been given up, and it's part of the offering to God, and that earth is the altar. So this, you can see the same connections with Adam being put into the cave, where the four quarters of the earth draw away in the form of a cross, and his relics are put in there, and then they close up, and then you've got an altar. And that, I think, is the pattern that we see in the life of Saint Oran as well, where they were trying to build an altar and they could not build an altar, and so they needed the sacrifice to create a firm place for the altar, so that the altar would be held firm.
Interesting.
As an offering. So that's my connections. Those are the things that I've.
That's cool. Thank you for
explored.
sharing that Book of the Cave of Treasures. I've never even heard of it before.
Yeah, Jonathan and Richard Rowland brought it up one time. Jonathan Peugeot and Richard Rowland brought it up in one of their conversations. And it's not a thick book. It's fairly, but it's meaty, and you'll find a lot more of the traditions in Orthodoxy make a lot more sense after you've read the Book of the Cave of Treasures, because there's a lot of things preserved in there that aren't necessarily preserved in the Old Testament.
Right.
This being a fantastic example. Let me just read a little further on, because I think it is okay. The Book of the Bee devotes a chapter to Melchizedek. No, I don't want to read the notes. I wanted to go back to And Shem said unto Melchizedek, Thou shalt be the priest of the Most High God, because thou alone hath God chosen to minister before him in this place. And thou shalt sit or dwell here continually, and shall not depart from this place all the days of thy life. Thou shalt not take a wife, thou shalt not shave thy head, and thou shalt not pour out blood in this place. Thou shalt not offer up wild beasts nor feathered fowl, but thou shalt offer up bread and wine always. And thou shalt not build a building in this place. And behold, the angel of the Lord shall come down to thee and visit thee continually. And Shem embraced and kissed Melchizedek and blessed him. And he returned to his brethren, and Malach, the father of Melchizedek, and his mother said unto Shem, Where is the young man? And he said, He died on the journey, and I buried him there. And they mourned for him greatly.
What? Wow.
So,
well, I mean, metaphorically, he did.
Right. Well, he didn't want them going to look for him.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the same Melchizedek that came to Abraham later.
Yeah. Wow.
And gave him the priesthood.
A Melchizedekian backstory, finally. That took you a long time to share with me.
Yeah. No, it's a fascinating
Really?
connection. There's a lot of things that all tie together. And I, I believe we're seeing the same pattern. And ultimately, it's not like this is a very explicit version of the same pattern that all, not only monastics, but everyone who enters the ascetic life is called to make. You're called to lay down your life. You're called to deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow Christ.
Yeah. Sacrifice at the altar.
Yes. Yeah. And so, here, obviously he's volunteering for it, and being buried alive, but that is, that is the monastic life. There was another story that comes to mind from St. Joseph the Hesychast, and he was known for being very extreme and intense, very intense person. And him and some of his followers were out praying, and they were praying on these cliffs. They were praying, like they would stand on the edge of the cliff and pray. And some of the monks came to him, and they were like, Father, we're concerned that we're going to, we don't eat hardly at all. We're fasting and we get dizzy. We're afraid that we might fall off the cliff. And he said, didn't you come here to die? Mm-hmm. And I think it's a level that it's hard for us to comprehend of self-denial and a death to the world, where it's not suicidal. It's that they're not connected to trying to preserve their life anymore. It's a surrender. It's a full surrender to the will of God with every part of
and that's not to say that God wills that they get dizzy and fall off the cliff.
Yeah, no one did. Right.
That's not to say that. It's mostly it's a trust thing.
Yes.
Who do you trust? You trust your own ability to do something, or do you trust God? I'm going to put a link in here. If anybody wants to join.
Yeah.
Please feel free. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. If you think about it from a purely, like if you were a pagan living on Iona, watching these monks, to see a man voluntarily lay down his life, it's almost like I often think back to C.S. Lewis talking about the first time he read Phantastes and how it baptized his imagination. And I think that that's such a great statement, to baptize your imagination. Mm-hmm. Because baptism is a symbol of death, right?
Yes.
Death and resurrection.
Right.
So it's not like something just dies. It's something old dies and something new is born.
Yeah.
And And that's what Lewis was talking about. And I think that, that act of laying down your life, that would have baptized the pagan imagination, Jeremy,
Mm, yeah.
because they killed the victims.
Yes. Correct. Yes.
Right?
That is a good distinction. Yes. And it wasn't always human. Like they did it with animals
Yeah.
as well. They did, or, and they still do this where they put things into the cornerstone or under the cornerstone of a building. The other thing I wanted to mention was the significance of a cornerstone. So,
Mm.
um, when they would build a new building, the first stone they would lay was the cornerstone, and it was usually in the southeast corner, which is the place that gets the most light. And I mean, this is traditional practice, and it's through modern day. They still do this.
Yeah.
It's more symbolic now, but at that time, the purpose of it was you would lay the cornerstone, and they would spend a lot of time leveling it, and they would square it to align it with the compass, right, with north, south, east, and west. And what they were doing is they were aligning it, and then they would put a stake in on the corner of it, and you would pull all of your string lines off of that cornerstone, and you could have them aligned, and that way everything was level and square from the beginning. So it was like the first stone that is the pattern
Right.
that is going to it's going to provide the orientation that you need in order to make sure the rest of the building is level and square so that it will stay standing.
That would be
And
called true.
yes, exactly. It's true. True to itself means
Yeah.
aligned. It
Hmm.
means aligned, right? Um, and
Let
plumb
me just
and
say
level and
something really
square.
quick,
So yeah, sure.
because I'll forget it. So I had a conversation with Donnie, actually. He was in the chat. I don't know if he's still watching. Talking about rationality and then um how rationality can wall you in. This is all stuff that I read from Matthias Desmet's book.
Hmm.
And it just really resonated with me. Because rationality is the ability to make connections, right? So you rationally, make your way along, connecting, stepping stones. Those are all, images of how your rationale works.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason we started talking about it was because he was reading Genesis 3, and there was a Hebrew word, I don't remember the Hebrew word, but it could have meant rationale, or it could have meant understanding, and it was about Eve as she was approaching taking the apple. And then I asked him, I said, well, could it also mean that she rationalized, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why she took the apple.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's like, no, I can't. And then I noticed, like I went back later and I noticed that she said, God said we can't touch it or eat from it. But God didn't say that anywhere. Even
Mm.
afterwards, he said, who told you you were naked? Did you eat from the tree? He didn't say, did you touch the tree?
Mm.
Right.
Right.
And what I also noticed was that God told Adam the commandment to not eat
Mm.
from the tree. And then he took Eve from Adam. Then he put Adam to sleep. Then he took Eve. So Eve got her instructions from Adam.
Adam.
And maybe
Right.
he just, elaborated on it, like, don't touch it. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Expanded the commandment out beyond its original commandment. Right.
and then,
Yeah. Which is what Christ criticized the Pharisees for when they were talking about their traditions, right? Like how come your disciples aren't following the traditions?
hmm,
And Christ was like, because your traditions are separated from the law, right? Your
yeah.
traditions are beyond it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's interesting about rationality here, just to get back to that, um, because you were talking about the cornerstone and the
Hmm.
trueness of the building,
Correct.
right? is that something that is rational is not always true.
Yes.
Something that is true is always rational, but you just can't you can't rationalize it. Like it has its own rationale, so to speak. You know?
Yeah, it can be coherent without being rational.
Well, this is the chaos theory argument, right?
Yes.
Where you might not be able to make the connections, but it
Right.
still connects. Like to me, that's what rationality is about. It's about seeing connections, you know?
That's a really nice way of putting it. Yes. As
Yeah.
someone who spent way too much time thinking about the chaos theory, that is a very good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not predictable, but it's still organic and it's still alive. It's still
Well,
connected.
it's a coherent relationship,
Yes.
right? Um,
Yeah.
and actually, like the Lorenz attractor, which is that, can you look that up for me? Because I'd love
Sure.
to show it.
Sure.
This is the water wheel experiment that this guy Lorenz did. Don't ask me all the I'm not like Jeremy. I can't I can't remember all the details. Kind of he was watching a water wheel that was acting like the way that they had the water going into the buckets. It was just super erratic.
Oh, do you
And
want me to pull up a video of that too?
sure,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, let's look at that.
All right.
Because I think this is such an interesting thought to think about in connection to like even this story, right? It looks random, it looks chaotic, it makes you feel random and chaotic. You know, it's like, okay, wait, this is like when, you know, right away you want to search for a pattern. You want to look for another guy who did that, see if it's okay. Because that's what we do.
That's what we do.
Right?
Yeah. Here we go.
Okay, cool.
I don't think it has any audio. Well, I have it turned down. I can share it. But so this is just a bunch of buckets on a wheel with water, and the buckets each have a small hole in the bottom of each bucket. With the faint sound of water dripping. I will turn that off. Okay.
Just
So
make your screen full screen, Jeremy.
oh, okay. There we go.
That's great.
So the water's going into the buckets, but it's also draining out of the bottom of each bucket. This is like a 5-minute video, so we don't have to watch
Good.
it. Okay.
We're good.
We got the idea.
Yeah. So it looks totally chaotic. So now you have to find the diagram, the Lorenz.
Okay. Sure, I've got that.
Because if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, he mapped out that movement on a graph.
Right.
And this is what he got. So it's not random. It's not random at all, actually. And look at it. Like, you know, one of the favorite diagrams in the corner is the torus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, this looks like a torus
Mm-hmm.
too.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is that pattern underneath the so-called chaos.
Yes. So it is deterministic, meaning, so I'll use some mathy terms here. It is deterministic, meaning we know the variables that are causing it, but the outcome is unpredictable. So it's like within a certain range, we know the ranges of the possible outcomes, but we don't know what the specific outcome at a particular moment is going to be.
I think they call it, isn't it a butterfly shape?
Well, there's the butterfly effect, which is a little different.
Okay.
The butterfly effect is this idea that a butterfly flying in South America, the effects on the air current will
Right.
affect the weather in Africa.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Ultimately, right? Like everything's connected.
Yeah. What I love about it is it's a never-ending, intertwined pattern,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Which to me just screams relationship.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like that's exactly what it's about. Now, why did we talk about that? Oh, true
Yes.
and rational.
Right.
Yeah. So I wanted to send it to you actually, Jeremy, and I will send it to you because there's a guy that, thanks to Jonathan Demir, who clipped a bunch of his stuff. He goes by the pen name of OG Rose. It's actually the pen name of him and his wife.
Hmm.
But his name is Daniel. And he just posted a video of a lecture on what's the name of it? I want to get it right. Let me see here. Sorry.
That's right.
The true isn't the rational.
Hmm.
And it's how you can get stuck behind the rational. Like you
Mm-hmm.
can, you know, because of the way rationality rationalizes, which is
Right.
precisely what Eve did, in a sense. I mean, she did rationalize, right? And the cool thing, okay, I'll just throw this out here and you tell me what you think.
Okay.
The interesting thing about this is that, in a sense, it is the propensity to bullshit yourself.
Yeah.
Which is what John Vervaeke's project is all about, like cultivating wisdom so that you don't bullshit yourself. But he wants to do it rationally.
Right.
Right? So, like I said to Donnie in the like short chat that we had, Eve is like, well, this I can't touch the tree, I can't eat from it because God said I'll die. And the snake's like, you won't die. And she's like, okay.
Right. Yeah. 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 Right. And she didn't ask Adam, and Adam didn't ask God.
No. And then
Right.
they all blame the other guy.
Right. Right.
This is why if you bullshit your bullshit, it makes sense because in it, yeah. And this
And
is the whole
negative.
point that OG Rose makes in The True Isn't Rational. Oh, it's so good. Young God, you'd love it. Just look it up.
Mm.
The True Isn't Rational, OG Rose. You'll find it on the internet.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, David Hume made this criticism as well of rationality, in that, we're stuck with deductive reasoning and we presume that patterns continue. And he said, and under that point of view, a cow believes the farmer is his best friend.
Mm.
Right. If you only have deductive reasoning and you go, wow, this guy feeds me every day, this guy's amazing.
Well, to me, this is what karma is.
Mm.
That's what karma
is. Deductive reasoning?
Yeah. It's cause and
Yeah.
effect. It's
Yeah.
it's like, it's the first thing a baby learns. If you touch that thing, it's hot and it'll burn you. Right?
Right. And it has use, right? It is
Yeah,
useful,
it
but
totally is.
it is not, it doesn't deserve the spot of primacy
Well, you
in
said it. You
deducing,
said it.
in determining what's true.
Yeah, you said it recently, Jeremy. You said we don't know we don't know causes. Like we really,
Correct.
and it's for that reason, like the water wheel and chaos theory, and like we really don't, because we can't see that pattern underneath, right?
There's too many variables for us to account for.
Yeah.
We don't know. Yeah, I believe that the more my life goes on and the more I learn, the less I believe in my confidence in assigning causality to
Mhm.
anything. Right? I don't I don't know why anything happens. Mm,
Yeah, and that is, I think that
yes,
that
Cassandra.
that that is that place of unknowing
Yeah.
that you come to, and like McGilchrist said recently in a conversation he had, you have to come to it through knowing. Like you
Yes.
have to come to it through rational. Like this is the same argument Desmond makes. You got to climb the ladder of rationality to the to the unknowing, right?
Yeah.
And yeah. Anyway, this is just this has been a bit of a conversation on the Discord too, on the Grout Country Discord. Of
Mm. Well, and I think, I'm watching this in real time with my brother who recently had his first child, who he named after our father. That's
hmm,
very moving. And he, he's older. My brother's 38, and he's having his first child. And he is very successful, and he's a very rational person. He's very intelligent. He's very well read. He's very charismatic, and he kind of has been experiencing for the last few years the book of Ecclesiastes, right? Where he's like, "Is this all there is?" It's a little bit of the all is vanity
hmm,
kind of situation that he's been living out for the last few years. And
yeah.
I'm really excited for him now to have a baby, have a son, and all of a sudden now he's like talking about family reunions
Mhm.
and legacies and teaching his son how to do, handing on his business to him. And like all of a sudden, all these things have come into my brother's life that really don't have a rational explanation for why he has these impulses. I
Well,
mean,
I
there
don't
can
remember.
be like I have a son, but it's like it's hard to contextualize in the worldview that he had before he had a son, right?
I don't know who it was. If anybody in the chat knows, please inform me. But I heard a quote from someone once while being in this corner. I don't know if it was Jordan Peterson or if it was John Vervaeke or if it was some other wise person said something like, if someone was to tell you what it's like to have a baby, where you get no sleep, you lose all your friends, you spend all your time cleaning up messes and dirty diapers and right, but your whole life, and you lose interest in your job and your career, you
Yeah.
know I mean, the way that they painted it, it just sounded like hell,
Yeah.
you know and yet it's the most wonderful thing in your whole life
Yeah.
is that child, right? And
Yeah.
so when you tell the story like that, it's not rational to have children,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah, and if you don't have children, you can't imagine. Like if you hear something like that, you're like, well, that's never happening. They're never
Yeah.
going to do that.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah. These
imagine.
people are just crazy. Yeah.
You can't imagine how fulfilling it is. Like you just can't. I think
Yeah. I'm looking
Mario.
for a statue that comes to mind that I think is like it's one of my favorite ex- uh, illustrations of what it means to be a parent that I've ever seen. Um, I'm not normally a fan of this kind of art, but this one's pretty striking.
Oh, wow. That is really. Where is this?
I don't know.
Wow. That is amazing.
Yeah, I really like that statue a lot. I think about that a lot.
Somebody really gets it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Marielle wrote or put a really good quote in here today. Seeing if I can find it.
I'll look up where that is while you look for that.
I just have to read. Marielle comes up with the greatest stuff. Where is it? Where did you put it, Marielle?
I can't find where it is.
It was that Anthony Bloom quote she put in here. Oh, maybe I'm not going to find it. No. I don't know where it is now. Darn it.
Okay.
It's all good. Yeah. So interesting. I'm going to send you that. I'm going to send you that OG Rose lecture.
Okay.
You're going to
Yeah.
you're going to eat it up. You're going to be able to follow it way better than I did. I had to put it on 1.75 and read the transcript while he talked.
Like 0.75, you mean? Like to slow it down?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. 0.75 to slow it
0.75.
down. Yeah.
And have the transcript going.
Well, I'm like that. I do a lot better with reading along while someone's reading.
Yeah.
Than, like, or when someone's speaking. It helps. Like, I usually watch movies with subtitles, frankly.
Oh,
So,
do you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. It's a lot easier for me to catch what's
I
going
end up
on.
just staring at the subtitles and I miss all the happenings.
Yeah, my wife's like that. She's like, I can't watch the movie with the subtitles on. I'm like, I think I read a lot faster than her. So like
Mhm.
I'm able to take in most of the movie while I'm reading.
Yeah. So I'm curious. You said your priest wasn't really familiar with Saint Oran. What did he think of that?
Well, okay. It's so funny because so I was telling her, I was like, oh yeah, he's the saint of he was the saint who was with Saint Columba, and he was buried under a building and everything like that. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, did you hear what Saint Columba's last words were? And I said, no. And he said, wait, there's just one more thing. He's referring to the TV show Columbo.
Oh, Columbo.
So that was all the wisdom I got from my priest on how to talk about this saint tonight. He made a Columbo joke.
Oh my God.
Younger people don't know it was a TV show, and there was a famous line, and that's what he would say, like toward the end of the like. So the fun thing with that show was for the first like quarter of the show, you're seeing the murder take place, and you're seeing who the murderer is, and then the whole rest of the show is this guy who's an investigator who comes in and he plays stupid the whole time.
Fumbles and bumbles.
Yeah, and just fumbles around, and he's always doing weird things and nobody can understand. But the audience, you're watching in real time him stumbling into and figuring out who did it. And then at the end, he's always revealing, the reveal is he's like, oh, wait, there's just one more thing. And he would ask a question in such a way that it would reveal that he knew what happened. So anyway, that was all the wisdom I was able to get out of my priest for how to talk about this topic. And I was like, well, I'm going to pray to St. Columba and to St. Oran, and we'll do our best. Mm-hmm. So, and I think it worked out.
Yeah. Well, that second reading that you did, seemed to jive more closely with the one that I was familiar with, where Saint Oran actually voluntarily
Mhm.
accepted the task.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was, I think Peter Brown talked about the fact that he was also weary of the world, and he was an older man, from what
He
I
did
could.
mention, yeah, it did mention that in a couple of the versions. Like in the first version I read, I think it mentioned that he was done. Like he was ready. He was ready to
Well,
go.
you know how
Like,
different.
I'll do it. Oh, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah,
Hey,
and
does
I mean,
somebody want to get buried alive? Yes.
remember the Island, the movie. At the end of that, the guy
Oh,
asked them to build him a casket,
yes.
and
Yeah.
he's just bebopping around doing his thing, and they bring the casket to him, and they're like, "All right, here it is." That and they always doubt him, right? Because he's a
Right.
crazy old fart, and he gets in it and dies.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
think
that's the
as far as I
thing.
understand, that's fairly common among monks.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
They're
That's the thing.
frequently told when they're going to die.
They're clairvoyant in a way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Especially for their time of death. So, Eugene said he's getting his tea. Cool.
Okay. I wonder if he's going to join us or
I
what.
wonder if he heard that story. He's probably got all kinds of little things going around in his head now.
Yeah.
Little fairies from little elves from Lothlorien, Eugene.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
listened.
No, I think it's been fascinating, and I love the tie to Adam and the
Hmm.
cave.
That was
In
really good.
Golgotha. I think it's that pattern just playing out.
Hmm.
So, anyway, what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
I was going to change the subject, so let's.
Okay, go ahead. I'll hit it.
No, it wasn't anything important.
Oh, okay.
I was just going to say that I listened to, before this, I listened to the newest Jawbone with Martin Shaw, and it was so good. He told
Oh, I
me
haven't listened to it yet.
really good. It's called Angels and Limousines. It was
Mm.
two really good stories.
Mm.
Just so good. I'm just so I'm at that point now where having propositional language to explain something, it's just not cutting it for me.
Mm.
I don't know. I mean, I know I do it, but the story is just, there's so much. I feel so filled up when I hear a good story, and I can't even really put my finger on it. Like,
Yeah, I hear you. You know what? It's funny you bring this up. I've been. This is a story that I hold on to, and my grandfather told me this story when I was in high school, and ever since then, it's something that my mind pulls out when I have a few spare minutes to sit and think about something. And this is often what my mind it's like, hey, what about this story? So I'd like to share it with you because I think I would love to hear what you have to say about this story,
sure.
because it's one that becomes more and more difficult for me to understand as time goes on, which is paradoxical.
That's a good story then.
So I have to give some context for the story because this is from my grandfather's life. My grandfather did not get along with his neighbor. This neighbor was a big man. My grandfather was not a big man. My grandfather was like 5'3", and this man was like 6'2" and probably weighed about 280. Big guy,
Mm.
maybe even more, like 300. So anyway, big guy, and he had 6 kids, and but he was in the local clergy as well, as far as in the Mormon hierarchy. He was in the stake presidency. So, but he would often yell at his kids as they were out working and, getting stuff done. And he was just a brash kind of, loud, big guy.
Authoritarian. type.
Yeah, very authoritarian. Yeah, and my grandfather did not like him. He didn't respect him. And one day, and my grandpa was, even though they didn't get along, right? They were helping each other in lambing season, as one does. And so he had gone over to help this guy with lambing. And so you have to help deliver the lambs and make sure the lambs survive, etc. Right. So, and it's like 2 weeks of not sleeping, basically, because you're there 24 hours a day, and so you kind of shift off, and that's why you're helping each other. Everybody's kind of helping each other with each other's lambs. So this one lamb, or this one sheep, she was a new mother. She had never had lambs before, and she had three, or I'm sorry, there was one sheep that was an older mother, and she had 3 lambs. But because she was older, she didn't produce as much milk. So she was driving away the third lamb. It's called the bum lamb. Okay. So there was a bum lamb. And then there was a young mother that she had 2 lambs, but one of them had died. So she only had 1 lamb. So they were trying to take the bum lamb and put it on this young mother. Okay.
Not an easy task, actually.
No, it's not.
Because it has to smell like her own.
Yes, it's all about smell, and this one doesn't smell, and so it's going to take away the milk from her own, right? Yeah. So she would turn around whenever they would try to help this lamb nurse. She would turn around and butt it away.
Yeah.
And sheep have very hard, thick skulls. Okay, that's very key to this story. They have very thick skulls. And you have to, you can punch a sheep in the head as hard as you can, and it will just hurt your hand. Mm-hmm. And the sheep is like, oh, sweet, we're playing. Right? Just for context, as a full-grown man, you can punch a sheep as hard as you want in the head, and the sheep will just think that now it's playtime. Mm-hmm. All that being said, my grandpa said he left for a bit, and he came back. And when he came back, the guy had tied up the young mother, and he was sitting in front of her on a chair. So the big man was sitting there, and he had a ball-peen hammer.
Oh no!
Which has it's like a hammer with a round end on it.
Yeah.
And when that mother would go to turn around, he'd hit her on the head with that hammer.
Oh God!
And he'd hit her pretty hard, because you have to get through a sheep's skull.
And you can eventually get through it, just saying.
You can still hit it too hard. And my grandpa did not like that at all.
Yeah.
And I have to say that the longer I sit with that story, there have been times in my life where I have, at different times in my life, I have been a different character in that story.
Mm.
And I've been every one of those characters in that story.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure.
I've been every one of them.
Yeah. I think we all have, actually.
It's a very difficult story.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what to do with it. But it doesn't go away.
No, well, here's what I would say. I'm not going to say much about it, but what I would say is it's I heard a rabbi once say that God gave us 2 commandments as human beings. He said to tend the garden and to dominate. And those things have to be in service to one another in order to be done properly. Right? Mm-hmm. Which is what most people fail to understand. So you've got the tender, the person who cares, the caregiver.
Right.
And then you've got the dominator. But to be, um, a healthy human being, you have to be both, right?
Mm-hmm.
In service to each one of those. You tend in order to dominate, you dominate in order to tend.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm just putting myself in that place because when I'm looking after my sheep, I have to dominate them in order to keep them safe
Yes.
and to give them the things that they need.
Yes.
Administer medication, clip their toes, feed them, all, like sometimes I lock them in a small pen so I can go through with a wheelbarrow full of hay. Otherwise, I'm pummeled, right? So it's like, but I'm not doing it because I get a kick out of dominating them.
Right.
I'm doing it to tend,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
is, I'm just going to say, I'm going to add this little footnote. It's like, this is, I think, really illustrative of the fact that we make these distinctions with division. It's justice and mercy, tending and dominating. It's all these opposites, right? But they need to be brought together into a synergistic relationship because that's the only way that, and that this is why Jesus is the Christ, because that's what he does. He reconciles all things to himself,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so sure, in your story, Jeremy, you see all the parts of yourself there
Yeah.
because we're fragmented. And what it means to be healed is to bring all those together, not to
Yeah.
discard any of them, actually.
Yeah. And one point that keeps coming back, and that's beautiful. That's beautifully. That's a good word. The thing that keeps coming back to me as well is that my judgmental grandfather is one of the characters of the story, right?
Yeah.
That is also part of the story. That I've been that too, right? I've been the judgmental neighbor.
Sure.
So it is a, to me, it's a very condensed poetic image of exactly what you're talking about. It is that tension that you have to find, often as a father and as a husband, where you are causing short-term pain or anger or emotion for long-term benefit because you have the long-term interest of your family in mind,
Yeah.
and they
But
can't see it, you know.
why your grandfather had those feelings is because he empathized with the sheep.
Yes.
That's the only way that you can actually know something is to empathize with it, right? And so, like, you led that story, Jeremy, with how he was an authoritarian father to begin with. He had six
Yes.
children, you mentioned, and your grandfather saw him shouting around at his children and ordering
Yeah.
them.
Right.
So when he saw that happening with the sheep, he saw that happening too. He saw that man doing that to his children. That's what he saw.
Yes.
And you know, this is why I believe in universal reconciliation, because healing means to, when something is cut, it's divided, and it has to come together. It has to be knit together.
Mm.
And that's what apokatastasis is. It's a knitting together. It's a healing. It's a reconciliation. It's all the same thing of two opposites, which is what you've got when you've got a cut. You've got
Mm.
two sides, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only thing that will resolve the problem. That's the only there's no other solution, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
except for reconciliation. And so that happens between neighbors, that happens between the man and his children, that happens between the man and his sheep, that happens between um, metaphorical opposites that happens within the church, that happens within all the pieces of you. But it has to happen like that.
Yeah.
In my opinion. So anyway, hi, Eugene.
Eugene,
guys.
hello. You've been here for a long time, just listening. Thank you.
Yes, I was listening. Looks like I missed that story that you're referring to because I jumped in
He was telling a story
out
about
way after.
yeah, he was telling a story about something his grandfather saw.
Yeah.
Helping a neighbor.
But what you were referring to just now kind of reminded me of this episode in Lord of the Rings when Gandalf is trying to reason with Bilbo about letting go of the ring, and Bilbo would get all mad and angry at him, and it says basically the next moment the room grew dark, and his figure looked menacing and almost like he, filled the whole room with his menacing menace. But the next moment, Bilbo, of course, got scared, but instead of running away, he actually ran to him, and then Gandalf said, "Well, I'm not trying to rob you. I'm your friend. I'm not trying to rob you. I'm trying to help you." And it's such a reconciling moment because that's really true when um, when someone is strong enough to really confront you with something, but yet that they're not against you. I've rarely experienced that, but I have experienced that, for which I'm eternally grateful.
Yeah.
Because you have to have at least once to see that how these two opposites seem to coincide in one person, and then it brings such a healing. Because usually you either see one or another. You either see someone getting angry, but they don't really care. They don't really tend for you. They really don't really care. Or you see someone who doesn't really get angry and they don't really care about you either.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, it's my priest's. He said he doesn't get after people very often in confession. He's like, I've only done it a few times as 15 years as a priest. He's like, but the last time I did, I got after somebody. There was a guy who was just spiraling out, and he said, and I got after him. I called him out, and he said at the end of it, when the guy stood up and he was crying and said, "Thank you for caring so much about my salvation." And he said that's a good day as a priest. That was a good answer, So yeah, that's what I was thinking of, is that there he does care enough to say, no, knock it off, kind of smacks you. Goes, wake up, right? Like, knock it off, calm down. That's a valuable friend. And you're right, Eugene, there aren't many. It's hard to find a friend like that.
Oh yeah. So I have a question I heard a little bit of the reading. So does this mean that Melchizedek actually, so we know of his ancestry, his ancestors?
According to this, yeah.
According to this, yes.
Where does this book come from, Jeremy? Cave of Treasures.
Let me pull it up again. So, I mean, it's from Syria, but where they found it is a different question. Let me look so I can find it.
So I remember you said something about it was thought that Saint Ephrem wrote it.
Yeah, it's attributed to Saint Ephrem the Syrian.
Okay.
Let's see. The edition of the Syriac text and an Arabic version of it, together with a German translation, were published in the 1800s, but this work is scarce and little known in England. The German translation was made from an eclectic text constructed from at least 3 manuscripts, which varied in age, in accuracy, and general literary value. The translation given in the following pages has been made from the best, in my opinion, of all the known manuscripts, namely British Museum. So this is from the conquest of the the British Empire, where they raided holy sites. So it comes from Syria.
Okay.
Okay, because it kind of seems to break the logic of the book of Hebrews then, because it actually says that Jesus comes in the order of Melchizedek. He's the priest in the order of Melchizedek, who didn't have any earthly ancestors, basically, father or mother, without any lineage, etc. And the references to Jesus being like from God, from the divine seed.
Well, I mean, maybe that's
etc.
why. Maybe that's where they get this no father and mother thing, because they in what Jeremy read, they tell the parents that he died. So he literally doesn't like to have a father and mother in those times meant to care for your father and mother, right?
Mm.
Mm.
Meant to be a son, meant to marry, have children, carry on the name. Name was memory. Like this is one of the things I realized about Job, reading the book of Job, because Job's children all died. You know, when his friends got really pissed with him, when they, you know, finally they'd had it, they were all nice for the longest time, and then none of their arguments were flying for Job, and then they said, well, you know, you'll never be remembered, you know, because he has no children. Your memory depended on your genealogy.
Mm. Yeah, he
So
was like the first monk. He was the first ascetic. Right?
so these parents, for them, with the idea that he had died, they lost, like he essentially didn't have parents. He abandoned his parents, right? Well, I don't mean to say that in a bad way. But
No, he was called.
he
He
was
was
told
called to serve as a priest.
to be there at that place and stay there.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, it had to be told to his parents that he had died. Otherwise, he was, I want to say the German word. What is it in English? Verpflichtet is the German, and it means duty
Obliged?
bound. Duty
Oh, there you go.
bound.
Duty bound. Yeah.
He was duty bound to his family.
Right.
Mm.
That's
So to break
insightful.
that,
Yeah.
to break that would be to be without parents, right? Because there's no duty to them anymore. So that I'm just throwing it out there. It's just a total.
That's interesting. Yeah. Okay.
There's a little note here too from the book. I'll share real quick. Let me pull it. Let me share this screen so you guys can read it too.
This is like solving the Bombadil mystery.
Yeah. So this is right after the story where Melchizedek. So he died on the journey, and I buried him there, and they mourned for him greatly. His parents, right? So he told his parents, "No, he's gone." A scribe's note says that in the manuscript of one, Melchizedek's father was called that word, and his mother was that word. Melchizedek wore a tunic of skin and a leather girdle. And this sounds just like John the Baptist.
I was just going to say, yeah.
And an angel dwelt with him and protected him and gave him food. When he was old, the kings of the earth heard his fame, and 11 of them gathered together and came to see him. And they entreated him to go with them, but he would not be persuaded, and he did not conform to their wishes. They built this. Oh, and when he did not conform to their wishes, they built a city for him there, and he called it Jerusalem. And the kings said to one another, "This is the king of all the earth and the father of nations."
Wow. And
Wow.
yeah, isn't that Abraham?
Well, no, Abraham. So Melchizedek was the one who came to Abraham and gave him the priesthood.
Oh.
And then he became the father of many nations, right? So it's like a chain.
I wonder if there's any connection to, Jewish texts like, I don't know, the Zohar or the Talmud.
Yeah, no, I have no idea. I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder.
But anyway, no, this if you have not read the Book of the Cave of Treasures, it is fun. It is really fun. You're just like over and over going, what?
Yeah.
It's really great.
And then they make reference to this other book called the Book of Adam.
Yeah. And then the Book of the Bee as well. So
what's the Book of the Bee? Do you know anything about that?
let's pull up some information. No, I don't. Book the Bee. Book of the Bee.
Because Jeremy, the Orthodox Church has only beeswax candles.
Correct. So the Book of the Bee is a historiographic and theological compilation containing numerous biblical stories. It was written around 1222 by Solomon of Aklat, who was Bishop of Basra within the Church of the East. It is written in the Syriac language.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So the Church of the East was a spin-off from Orthodoxy.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, and very intriguing, actually. Stephen Osborne has shared quite a bit of stuff with me about the Syriac Church. It's really fascinating, actually.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Book of Adam. I don't know what the Book of Adam is either. Book of Adam. I think. Let's see. There's several different the books of Adam. So I don't know exactly which one this is referring to.
Okay.
Yeah, there's several, so I don't know which one this is referring to.
I wonder where Ephraim the Syrian found this information.
I always assume that a lot of this stuff is like old oral tradition.
Like oral tradition,
collected,
right?
Yeah, it's collected or preserved in manuscripts and collected. Yeah. It was compiled by him. That's kind of how it worked back then, as far as I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really. I mean, there's a whole mythology around a lot of things that we as Christians do and believe in.
Yeah.
And it's not just as far back as the church. I see a lot of parallels to Judaism, actually. A lot of
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of things. So, I mean, the first Christians were Jewish. Jesus was Jewish. Hello.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the Orthodox see Christianity as a continuation.
Mm-hmm. Well,
the whole shape of our church, the architecture, everything is all related to the tabernacle. Right? So.
And also, there is this idea in Judaism of Noahidism, right? The Gentile who follows the Noahidic laws or whatever, which is exactly what the Council of Jerusalem decided in the Book of Acts, because they were Jewish. So they're like, what do we do with people? Well, they can do the Noahide laws. They can be Noahides, right? Because that's salvation for everyone, for the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to, do everything. And so, like, my question to Kezi, for example, has always been like, what are you doing? Like, Christianity is the Noahidic. It is the Noahide-ism.
Yeah.
It is it, So, yeah, it's just kind of neat. I like thinking about those things. I always tell Yosef, I'm not looking for differences. I'm looking for similarities, man.
Yeah.
Way more interesting.
Well, I did think it was interesting. Noah, came out on the first day. He came out of the ark on Sunday, but he built a city there and named it 8.
Yeah.
So it was also the 8th day, and it was also the 8 people who came out of the ark, right? So there's so much symbolism there.
Totally. And we talked about that too, right?
Yeah, we did before with the baptismal font being 8.
Yeah. And then what was that, an icon or something that you showed with the it was in Ravenna. in that church with the 8 trees.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
there's
still thinking about this whole idea also about Adam being buried on Golgotha, under Golgotha.
Mm.
It seems vast to me. I mean, I can't get around my mind around it at the moment. But it's something to it. Yeah. Even if it's just a myth, it's still.
Well, it also has to do with the Christology of the Adam being the old Adam and Christ is the new
the
Adam.
new Adam.
And there's an interesting icon that I'm actually having made for myself. It's a very old one, and it's Adam in the garden with the tree and Christ grabbing his wrist, right, and pulling him. Because that's the story. And so the whole idea of the blood of Christ dripping onto Bulgakov talks about it too in terms of a sacramentalization of the whole cosmos, right? This is when creation happens.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Jesus says it is finished.
Mm-hmm.
Creation is finished, because the creation of the human in Genesis, and this is all not my idea, this is from Father John Bear, it's an ongoing, like when God says, let us make man, the Hebrew there is, let us be making.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a continual process of creating. And then John Bear, illustrates really well how it's culminated at the cross. And of course, this is what, what's his name? Who wrote on the Incarnation? Is it Irenaeus?
Saint Athanasius.
Saint Athanasius.
Yeah.
That's the argument that he makes on the Incarnation, and that's why the Incarnations, plays such a huge role, because creation happens at the cross, and that's all part of that whole mythology of the place of the skull, the old man, the new Adam, all that stuff. It's all
the axis at the center of the earth.
Yeah.
The axis around which the earth turns.
Yes, and then it's also the cosmology of the time, where the earth is flat and has 4 corners. And
Right.
that's the symbolism of the altar. Jonathan Pajot talks about this all the time.
Right.
Like the earth is the altar, right? It's just like a table.
Yes.
That's why it's flat,
Yes.
in mythology and symbolism. It should be flat. Yeah.
And Judaism has the same thing. Has 4 directions, 4 corners.
Well, and the Romans did too. Like all the Roman buildings had
very ancient way of
the cube with the dome, right?
Yeah.
Heaven and the earth.
That is interesting. I mean, when I, think about all these things and what you, Sherry, said about trying to connect everything, it's almost like you don't even need to try to connect everything, because when you dive deep into one thing, all of a sudden it starts opening into everything.
Yeah.
And it's just mind-blowing, because literally whatever I look at, whatever story, whatever thing, if I just allow this thing to be, without, falling, I've been watching Ian McGilchrist too much, and without falling too much into my left hemisphere, but everything is connecting just almost instantly.
Yes.
And when you see those relationships is when you get into the realm of meaning, and then everything really starts, the world starts meaning to you.
This might sound really weird, but this has really been on my mind, because I went out and collected, for years, I collected this certain lichen that grows on the trees around here to dye wool with, because I wanted to do that one day. But I was so focused on learning how to spin and, expanding my knitting practices and, getting better at things. Finally, I got to the point where I wanted to knit color work. And so I was using up some old colorful wool that I had because my sheep are not color. I don't have red sheep or yellow sheep or green sheep. and then I'm like, okay, now it's time. Now it's time to die. So time to die.
Today's a good day to die.
It's so funny. It's so funny in English.
And so I did it for the first time. Yesterday I actually died. And I have, you got to have this dye pot going, and I've got this lichen in there. And this lichen is just filling up my house with this smell, and I'm like, oh my God. And I opened all the windows and the doors, I had the fan, it was cold weather. In the end, I had to build a fire in my wood stove because it got so cold in the house, but I couldn't stand the smell for some reason. It was just driving me insane. And then I got it all done, got the whole house aired out. And this was a process like of 3 hours, boiling. And then I can still smell it. I can smell it everywhere. And I'm asking my husband, I'm like, can you smell that? And I have the finished hanks of wool, and I lift them to my nose, and they're like, oh my God, they smell like this lichen. And I bring it up to him, I'm like, can you smell that? And he's like, no, it smells fine to me. I'm like, okay, this is weird, because it feels like the lichen has possessed me. I feel like I'm possessed.
You've been infused. Yeah, you've been infused with lichen.
And now it's like it's cast its spell on me, because this is how fungus is.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever heard Merlin Sheldrake talk about it? It'll make you do stuff.
Well, yeah, that's true.
And I'm not talking about magic mushrooms. I'm
no,
talking
right.
about fungus, period. Yeah. Spores in the air, and it has mental effects on you. And I'm just so the reason I'm bringing this up is because Eugene's talking about everything being connected, and I feel like I need to start growing roots into the earth.
Well, and I was thinking of incense as you were talking about that, right? Like there's a hymn that they sing right now that our prayers go up to you like incense, and as they're sensing the church, and that's what I was thinking of, is just being sensed. You were sensed with lichen, basically.
Yeah, totally was.
So
what is lichen? What is it?
Lichen.
I can show. There's all different kinds of lichen. There's hundreds, if not thousands.
Berries?
No. I'll pull up. She'll have to show, or she'll have to share it. She went away.
There is
it grows on rocks primarily.
This one grows on trees.
Oh, okay. It grows on trees or rocks. Yeah.
Oh, that thing. I thought it was some kind of a moss.
Well, it's called wolf lichen. And
that's cool. You guys have cool lichen.
And,
okay.
And it makes a yellow color, bright yellow.
Around here, our lichen primarily just grows on rocks.
Oh.
We don't get it on trees. I don't think we have enough moisture. We're too dry.
We don't have much moisture either, but we have a lot of stuff hanging in the trees. Like,
interesting.
We have old man's beard. Have you ever seen that? It's like a green moss.
Yeah, we have a lot of those in Texas. Yeah.
I have some of that myself.
Mistletoe? I don't think mistletoe is a lichen. It's a parasitic plant, but I don't think it's a lichen.
I'm sure
that's how you spell it. Okay,
lichen. Mm-hmm.
Lichen.
Oh, sorry. There we go. Jeremy's got a whole thing there.
Yep, I've seen those for sure.
Yeah, there's lots.
We have all those lichen too.
But yeah, the stuff that grows around here is like this, like you'd see it on a rock like that.
Yeah. Lichen are really fabulous to dye with because you don't need mordant for it, and the color stays fast, and you can get pretty nice colors. Like you can get purples and see, there's a wolf lichen down at the bottom there. It's just not so brightly green.
Here?
No, in the middle there.
Oh,
Mhm.
here.
Oh, you had it right
Oh, this one.
first time. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, that's very much how wolf lichen grows. Only it's just that bright green that I have.
that's
Grows
cool.
like that on fur.
So you put
Uh,
it in a pot and boil it, and then put your linen or whatever
Wool,
cloth in it.
my
Wool.
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 Yeah, my spun
Okay.
wool. It's yarn, that you
It's
knit with.
yarn. Oh,
Yeah, it's all spun,
cool.
and
Uh-huh.
then I drop it in that dye pot and let it go.
I have a rock that I found in the desert. I was looking for scorpions, and I had a black light in the middle of the night, and I was walking around, and I found a rock that glows under a black light, and it's a lichen that grows on it, and it glows orange under a
Wow.
black light. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty
Is
cool.
it so? Is that like phosphorescent?
No, it only because it doesn't glow on its own.
Only glows with the light.
It glows under the black light. Yeah, I'll have it. I'll bring it next time we do a show, and I'll show it to you. It's pretty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
So it glows orange under a black light. It's very cool.
There's a
I
sad
was like,
story.
why do I have an orange rock? That's crazy. I picked it up because I was like not afraid of dying of radiation poisoning apparently, but it just turned out to be like it. So that's great.
Yeah, well, apparently First Nations used it for dyeing things, for painting faces, and but it's toxic to canines, wild canine, and dogs.
Hmm.
It's one of the few lichens that are toxic, and so in the United States, especially when they were trying to eradicate the wolf, they used to grind it up and with ground glass in meat and bait
Hmm.
and kill them that way.
Wow.
So it has a bit of a dark history, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I don't know. I was really puzzled by the fact that I feel like I can smell it everywhere. Like I go upstairs now and I'm like, oh, I can still smell that stuff. And I hung my wool out all day. And when I brought it in, it was just like, oh, and then I put it in water with some fresh stuff,
Yeah.
Still smells. Something's speaking to me. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. 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 That's
Crazy.
a reasonable conclusion, I think.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I feel like I've been roped into it. I was like, how did I get myself into this?
You've been initiated into the lichen cult.
Oh no. You find me out in the forest just like this. Being a
just gonna lay around on rocks all the time now.
Yeah.
Just sleep on a rock. You're gonna pray on a rock like Saint Seraphim.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
You're gonna pray kneeling on a rock like Saint Seraphim for a year. Maybe that's the time.
There'll just be like a lichen imprint of me after.
That's funny.
Oh, that's creepy. Yeah. So how are your potatoes growing, Eugene?
Well, they're going great. They're about let's see, say about a foot, maybe more than a foot high. Yeah, and I just watched a couple of videos where they say I should be trimming the whatever they're called, the lower stems, because the more you trim, the more the tubers actually grow. And yeah, the tomatoes are growing fine. I just replanted some today, and I thought I'd killed two sprouts, but then after about an hour, they looked so wilty, but then after an hour, they came up, and I was so happy. There's everything has to. I mean, everything is connected, but like we have a season, like everything is growing. Everything is growing. We have jasmine, like jasmine grove. Like
Wow.
you walk in and you're like, well, it's not lichen, but it's like it smells so intense.
Yeah, it's really
And then there's also honeysuckle there. So sometimes we have to
wow.
compare which is better. Actually, think honeysuckle is a little more sweet than jasmine. But one thing, as I was replanting my tomatoes today, uh, it kind of struck me that uh, I mean, growth is so universal. To grow is such a natural thing because we have like those weeds, whatever they're called, clover or something. You know,
Hmm.
the stuff that cows really like. You
Yeah.
know, clover, and like I like this. Where do these seeds come? Where do these weeds come from? I don't know.
Oh,
But
I
they
know.
just keep sprouting, keep sprouting, keep sprouting. I keep weeding them out. I keep weeding them out, and they keep sprouting. Uh, which is it doesn't annoy me at all because I just see it's just that's the way it is. It's like,
Yeah.
and
Well, this
I'm
is the
so
whole
grateful.
argument. Yeah, this is the whole argument for abundance, right?
It is. It is. It's abundant.
Yeah.
But it made me think how the first thing that actually you see in Siberia after the snow is gone, like about this time of year, uh, is yellow flowers. I don't have any idea what you call them in English, but it's like you can imagine like the dirty snow, the last of the dirty snow, the
Mm.
mud, everything is like
Yeah, it is.
fresh out of winter, out of the winter,
Yeah.
and then this beauty starts
Yes.
springing everywhere,
Yeah.
and it is such a symbol of renewal. Everything is just like it's coming again. Everything is growing again.
Yeah.
It's coming,
Yeah.
even if it's cold outside.
Yeah. And the thing that you thought meant death actually turns out to mean life. It fills up
Hmm.
all the rivers and the streams and the ground and with water, right? The snow.
Yeah, yeah.
And like my daughter and her husband were here for dinner the other night, and we went for a long walk. And she's like, "It's just crazy how as soon as the snow's gone, the grass is green." Like, hey,
Hmm.
we're back in business.
Yeah. My friend calls snow a water battery.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
Yes,
a big
yes, a water
battery for
battery.
water.
yeah. I call it
Mm.
slow release rain.
Yeah, nice.
Like slow
Yeah,
release.
well, I've just been going through some passages in the Silmarillion recently,
Mm,
especially the one about, death being the gift of Iluvatar to men. And it so ties in so closely with what we've just been talking about, those cycles of dying and being renewed, and
mm,
then also Tolkien says a very interesting thing is that there will come a time when even the powers will envy men,
mm.
that they have been given this gift of being able to let go,
Yeah,
depart, die, and be renewed.
yeah,
Because all the elves are bound to the fate of the earth, you know,
Mhm.
Arda, and they have to linger until it lingers to the end. And they
right,
grow
Mhm.
weary because the cycle is too long, whereas for men, the cycle is quick.
right.
And it's just like going to sleep in the evening and then you wake up refreshed in the morning
Mm,
and you kind of shake it off. You shake off the old self and then you get renewed. It's the baptism. That's what we pretty much do every day
yeah,
We die every
because we're
night.
doomed.
That's right.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. We
yeah.
die every night and we get resurrected in the morning. And that it has to continue.
I'm just,
Mm.
I'm just remembering. I don't have the book here, but in one of the Duino elegies by Rilke, he talks about don't tell the angel. He's talking about talking to an angel. He says, don't tell the angel all the great cosmic wonders. That's not news to him. Tell him something. Show him something that you've made with your hands.
Yeah,
That's how he
yeah.
describes it. It's not word for word, but it's such a
Mm,
beautiful image of how the angel can just be astounded at the creativity and the resilience of the human being.
mm,
You know,
mhm. Yeah.
it's really beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, I have to go, guys. So good to see you.
Mhm. Yeah, you too, Eugene.
Thanks for joining us, Eugene. It's always a pleasure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Yeah, I guess we could end it here too. I should go.
I should as well. I have to work tomorrow, so man, I miss it when we don't do the shows. I'm really glad that we did it this week, and
yeah,
I'm pretty sure I have a service at 6 p.m. next week, so I don't think I can be here.
okay. We'll just wait till after Tosca.
Yeah, we'll hit Bright Week. That'll be the best.
Will that work?
Yeah.
Services on that Tuesday after?
No. There's no services on the Tuesday after Pascha. Wednesday, though, is my name day for St. George. So that's exciting. I might take the work. I'll probably take the morning off from work and go down to liturgy that morning.
Nice.
Yeah, they always have liturgy on St. George's name day. So
okay, cool.
So we'll probably go down for that. But yeah, no, this is a big week we're going into, and
the
culmination of great Lent. Like I said, Friday.
Well, I mean, Eugene was talking about dying and being refreshed, and I was thinking that's what Lent is.
Yes.
Lent is, and soon you will be resurrected, Jeremy.
Maybe blessed.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm. This has been a very healing great Lent. It's been. I feel like. Every great Lent I go, oh, now I understand what it means to be Orthodox, right? But this one feels like a lot of. Oh, it's Joy. Hello, Joy. Oh, glory to God. Wow. I'm so excited for you. Wow. What a story. Joy.
Yeah. I wish I could be there, Joy.
Me too. I wish I could come. If I could, I would, but
I am there.
Yes.
Just like
definitely we will be standing in celebration with you.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. I'm so happy for you, Joy. That's so really cool. But no, I was just going to say this great Lent's been very helpful for me. I think a lot of stuff that has been some of those deeper, more entrenched rocks have finally, like, the grace of God has finally worked some of the soil around those rocks, and has made it possible for those to be dug out and brought to the surface and healed. And it's been really, I'm very grateful for Great Lent, and grateful for Pascha and all that comes with it. So, man, I'm so happy to hear that, Joy. I can't tell you how much.
Well, I hope I get to see you, Joy. Actually, I hope I get to see everybody. I'm gonna be in the North Carolina. I'm going to go.
Oh, you're going to the North Carolina one? When is that?
Oh, it's not till October. October, I think 16, 17, 18.
Oh, see, that one's more viable for me than I can't do the August one in Chicago because of my daughter. But
yeah. Well, maybe I'll see you there again. That would be cool.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll look at that. That's intriguing.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, thank everybody for being here tonight, and we'll skip next week, and we'll see you all the following Tuesday. Not next Tuesday.
Word to God.
Following Tuesday.
Yep. Thanks a lot. Thanks all for joining us.
Bye. Oh, hang on. There we go.